Wait a minute, are we recording now?
1 second.
Okay.
Yes, we're live already, and
All right.
uh,
All right.
looks like we have a very, very weak signal. Let's see what's happening here. Wow, I can't believe we're that unsupported resolution.
Do you find that the Czech Republic has high-speed enough internet, and that the international? All right.
Shalom Charim, I'm Steve Benoon. You guys are watching Israeli News Live, and listen, we are doing something a little bit different here. We wanted to include you in on Hebrew Nation Radio, the program that I do with Bonnie Harvey, and she's our guest here this evening. She's the host of the broadcast Flashpoint on Hebrew Nation Radio. You can look this up at HebrewNationOnline.com. Are the programs that we do every week. They're always posted. They're archived there. Get in some very interesting discussions. We kind of highlight the things that are happening that week in the world, around the world, especially in the Middle East. And of course, as the broadcast name goes, it's a flashpoint. We are looking for where the flashpoint will be, the spark that will actually ignite the world. So we're going to pause just for a moment here as Bonnie gets ready to introduce the program that airs on Hebrew Nation Radio. We just figured we would run it live here, right here for you guys on Israeli News Live, so you can kind of get a feel for what we're doing over there. And that way, if you want to tune in, all you got to do is you can actually tune in. It's always in the archive, but it does. You'd have to look it up to see. Just look up Hebrew Nation Radio online.com, then look for Flashpoint, and you can find out the actual times that it airs on the radio up here in the United States as well. So that way you can listen to it in your car driving down the road. So I'm going to kind of pause out here for just a moment and let Bonnie have the floor so she can get the program going.
Well, as I usually call everyone to enter the show, usually welcome to Flashpoint, where will be the spark that ignites the world. With me, of course, special guest every week, Stephen Ben-Nun. Welcome to the show, Stephen.
Thank you, Bonnie. It's exciting to be here, and it's exciting to do what we're doing right now.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. This is an exciting weekly adventure we try to do. I know we're both very busy, but this is good. So we're going to start out this week on the 5 meetings, and the background to these 5 meetings is not only are the global leaders meeting this week, but also the IG report has been delayed until Thursday, until Trump gets back, I guess, from Singapore. And I just, I know that the global energies, the global powers are aligning against Trump, and that is very, very concerning, because if this country loses Trump and gets Pence, as many people have had dreams of that, all that is being held back, I think, not because he is a spiritually in tune and upright man, but because I don't think with him in here that Russia, I don't know, that's a personal opinion. I don't think that that the attack on the United States would start happening. And I think he's doing a lot to try and save us from the brink of financial collapse, or at least usher us into the financial collapse so that we can remain on a better footing as a country, as a national domestic entity than we would if we were just free fall. So I hope that he makes it back from Singapore, but it's concerning to see the likes of George Soros and the Vatican and the entire G7. I don't know if you saw that picture, Stephen, of the G7 where Trump is sitting with his arms across his chest, and the entire of the G7 is in front of him and imploring him, and he's, this is America has been robbed for decades the free ride, the piggy bank of America is over. Very powerful picture, but uh, very dangerous times. Very dangerous times, uh, Stephen. So with that as kind of a background, shall we go into the five meeting sites, the five meeting occurrences that are happening in the world, and what that portends?
Absolutely. And I looked at that picture you were talking about, and Angela Merkel is leaning over the desk. Her hands are on the desk. She's leaning forward, almost as if she's scolding him to, either give in and do what he's supposed to do. And it's obvious. Especially, you have the Japanese foreign minister Abe is just over to his right shoulder there, but they have really gathered in there around him like hawks, all sitting on the telephone pole waiting to devour this man. And this was also, Bonnie, what I saw with when he had mentioned it should be the G8 with Russia here. He could probably get a better deal with Russia. That's one thing that really made me take a second look again at President Trump and say, maybe this man is really trying to fight for what's right. And this is what not only the G7 knows that there is going to be a change, but right across, the skies not far from there, they were having the Bilderberg meeting. And some of the very leaders that are at different meetings around, like at the NATO meeting, Jens Stoltenberg, who is the head of NATO, went from NATO's meeting to the Bilderberg meeting. And, of course, one of the agendas on their list also was Russia. So it's like they're troubled that he's wanting to try to do something with Russia, and at the same time, he's willing to really cause the entire New World Order to slow down. But at the same time, I watch what's happening in Israel, and what most people have no idea about is that the Israeli government is really selling out our own people. They're preparing the old city of Jerusalem to become another city-state, just like what you have with the Vatican, where the Vatican is in Rome. It's a city-state. You have the city-state in England. You have a city-state in Washington, D.C. And they're going to try to make the old city of Jerusalem the exact same way. And that's biblical prophecy, because God said they would tread down, the Gentiles would tread down the city of Jerusalem underfoot for 42 months. So we are at the precipice of a truly changing times, a new world order, and all these different groups that are meeting this week is just troubling to me, Bonnie. Just troubling. Your thoughts on this?
Well, it is troubling. I mean, the Bilderbergers have done nothing but push globalism and try to suppress nationalism. They are the lords of the world. There have been many reports. I mean, like John Kennedy said, secret societies, that's anathema to open democracies. And when these people are on the heads of the corporations, many of them are leaders. Here we have Stoltenberg, who previous to his post at the UN, he was in Africa with a 666 black T-shirt on. It's just too close to, what is their goal? What do they know? Why would you walk around with a 666 T-shirt? I mean, I just shake my head. Either you have secret knowledge of basically demonic plans to build a one world empire, so the reins can be handed over to Satan, which is, of course, prophecy, or, why else would you be doing that? I mean, and 666 is not happenstantial. He's not walking around with a 123 or a 512 or something on there. 666. So that he goes to the Bilderbergs meeting is just there's okay. Well, that's congruent. I'm looking up the Bilderberg mission statement now on the other screen. So that's what I would do. If I find something, I'll let you know, Stephen. But That's pretty much, odd timing. Are there coincidences? Well, Q says there are no coincidences. Here we have NATO, the Bilderbergs, the G7. We have China, Russia, Iran meeting, and then the U.S. generals with Russian generals, as you mentioned on your broadcast yesterday. That's quite a litany of world leaders.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And then,
That's
why does
the
it...
military and the corporate leaders of the world meeting.
Exactly. And then for the first time in the history of the Bilderbergs, they throw in the Secretary of State of the Vatican.
Yeah.
That's just really eerie. After all, we showed on Israeli News Live yesterday, we were showing the video of Pope Francis when he was there in Israel. And I think that was from 2014, if I'm not mistaken. I don't recall for sure. But when he was actually there, kissing the hands of the Rockefellers and the Rothschild families there, they were actually at the Holocaust Memorial Museum. And I know the very building they were in. It's the dedication for the different camps there where the Jews were actually burned. Dachau was one of those camps where I actually lost family members, as well as Auschwitz. And it just seemed very odd that he was doing that. But then on top of this, we see the players for the New World Order. Everything is in place. And so you can't help but wonder, what's going on, what's happening. And of course, they're saying too, with President Trump actually going to Singapore to meet with Kim Jong-un, that this may be something that he's trying to get out of the way in order to actually prepare for the strike on Iran. That's another issue coming up. And I think, Bonnie, that the strike on Iran is actually playing into the New World Order agenda, as well as, and let me back up and say this, as well as taking down Lebanon and Syria. As we had seen I want to say this was the other day, but maybe this was from Barry Chamish. No, I think it was from the article I did the other day, that back in 1954, under Moshe Sharit and Ben Gurion, they were supposed to take and defeat Lebanon and overthrow the government and turn it into a Christian state. That was something that just floored me altogether. And then I came across this article here by Barry Chamish about Rabbi Altman and his comments. And of course, Rabbi Altman is a rabbi that really knew about the Illuminati and the New World Order long before most people ever thought about conspiracy theories. And he goes all the way back to 1974 when he was bringing out about the Illuminati or the Council on Foreign Relations, the CFR, and he published in his book to eliminate the opiate and expose their covert war against religion, focused on their battle plan to extinguish Judaism, but with great implications for Christianity as well. This is Rabbi Marvin Altman that actually wrote the book about this, and this book ended up being banned, as far as if I remember correctly on that. But he was showing how that the New World Order was setting up the Jewish people for a massacre, that they wanted to bring in the Jewish people from around the world because they were going to use Jerusalem to set up a New World Order. But not only were they planning on trying to kill off as many Jews as they possibly could, but also they would target the evangelical Christians of America, any of the Christian communities, whether it be evangelical, whether it be Hebrew roots, Baptists, whatever they may be, that support Israel itself for the returning of the biblical promises. These are the people that they would focus on, Bonnie, to try to take out. And this is what Rabbi Altman actually wrote about very extensively. And then he wrote a second book where he actually names the names of those Jewish leaders that were brought in, how they were brought in, and of course which ones were given up, etc., stuff like that. It's very... I'm still working on some of these things here, because if we think about it...
Did he suffer an untimely death? Rabbi Altman?
If I'm not mistaken, I'm sure he did die, but I don't know as of yet. I wish Barry was still alive. I'd love to talk to Barry about that, if that's the case, because I'm sure that could be one of the issues there. But the one thing, though, that was really interesting was that in some of this research that we're doing here, I've actually I lost my thought. That's nothing unusual. So, but you know,
That happens all the time. How did we get here? Where are we?
that's right. Cannot remember to save my life here.
Yeah.
But there's just so much. I know what I was thinking about was, you know, we have the biblical prophecy, Bonnie, where it talks about 2/3 of Israel will die. That when the nations come against Israel, we are to still see this prophecy fulfilled. 2/3 of them will die. Now, could this be that the prophet, when he prophesied this, saw this very new world order agenda moving forward, and as a result of them, this desire of some of these Zionists to want to kill off the Jewish people, that this is what they had actually had seen? It's hard to say, but when I was, like I said, when I was doing my research to begin with, and I began to see more and more in the contacts that I had with the Bielski family, and speaking with Michael Bielski, which is the oldest son of Tuvia Bielski, which the movie Defiance was made after, and him telling me personally, you know, I sat right there in his living room one night, and we were talking about his father and how he shared with me things that his father had told him about, and one of those was the fact that when the nation of Israel was going to fight for independence, he was asked to guard the road going up to Jerusalem and not allow any Jews whatsoever to cross that road, and if they did, he was to kill them. And he says, I can't be a part of that. I just spent the last 6 years in the Holocaust in Belarus saving the lives of Jews. I say 1,200 Jews. Do you think I'm going to start killing them now? He said, I'll be no part of it. And Avi Lipkin in 2015 at the Seret, which is the theater system right there, just down the mountainside from Mount Zion in Jerusalem, outside the old city there, I gave that testimony there in Jerusalem at a conference that we were doing there, and Avi Lipkin was a speaker right after I was, and when he came on, Avi also, he says, what Steve just said to you guys about the Bielski family, he says, I can concur with him. He says, I know the story as well, and I do know that Tuvia Bielski was asked to murder the Jews that tried to go to Jerusalem because there was a covenant already signed as part of one of the resolutions of the League of Nations that Jerusalem would end up being an internationalized city, and that they had already made the agreement. That was Moshe Sharit. And he says, and this is when he brings up the issue about the Altalena and how the Altalena was actually sunk, and that was under Menachem Begin, who was wanting to liberate Jerusalem. He said, if we're going to take our country, we need to take Jerusalem as well. But Moshe Sharit, who was the foreign minister, and Ben Gurion, who was the prime minister, that would be the first prime minister, first foreign minister of Israel, they had made an agreement with Rome not to touch Jerusalem, to leave Jerusalem alone, and they would support that. And that was under Pope Pius XII that made that agreement.
So Jerusalem's been sold out since the beginning. I mean, League of Nations, what's
Yes.
that, 1917?
Exactly. Going back to 1920, when the League of Nations, the British Mandate. Now, the British Mandate originally, I'd have to say in 1920, the British Mandate had given not only all the state of Israel, but even what we call the modern state of Jordan as a Jewish homeland. And then in 1922, they reneged on that. This is when we started to see the boundaries come into play. And by 1946, we saw Jerusalem. This is at that point now is no longer League of Nations. It was United Nations Resolution 181 that put a Gaza Strip, which was twice the size of what it is now. The West Bank, a little larger than what we see today, that's being offered, with Jerusalem as an international city. The entire city of Jerusalem was going to be an international city, not just the old city. So that was a sellout. And what was troubling me, I knew that Moshe Sharit had met with Pope Pius XII before coming to Israel, and I know that he was very instrumental in Jerusalem being internationalized, and the Vatican was supposed to be given Jerusalem to start with. Now, the meeting that he had with Pope Pius XII was never recorded. They did not want that meeting to be public. But
shocker.
Yes, and here's the funny thing: the Jewish Congress what they call the Jewish Congress, which is really has no affiliation to the Knesset of Israel. But this is a group of rabbis from around the world. They have really been the ones that signed on the Nostra Aetate with the Vatican. They were the ones that have really been facilitating bringing Rome closer to the ties with Israel. And as I began to investigate the Jewish Congress, I began to note, I investigated every single rabbi that had signed on to the Nostra Aetate. And then as you go back, you find out that most of these rabbis had actually been doing a minimum for a decade, in some cases almost 2 decades, writing apologetics for Rome and the Catholic Church in the Holocaust. And in fact, when the Vatican met with the head of the Google, this is when we've seen everything that was against Pope Pius XII begin to be suppressed. It was all pushed down, and anything that was in favor or that was written by these different rabbis in support of the Pope of Rome, those all went to the top of the articles there. So it was very interesting to see how this happened, and yet at the same time very troubling. So I knew that there must be a deeper connection than what I had realized from the beginning, and I found that deeper connection, Bonnie, when I did the broadcast on Israeli News Live last night. And I had found, actually, Yana had found the connection there. I forget, let me see if I can pull that up here in just a second there. But we'd found where Ben Gurion was one of the quote-unquote elites that Himmler allowed in exchange for the death of almost 8,000 Jews. There were 380 Jews that were part of an elite circle that were going to be allowed to escape, to go to the land of Israel, as they were calling it, Palestine, to create the state of Israel. And I'm going to pull it up here in just a moment, the very name of the Jewish man, very much like George Soros. George Soros also sold out the Jewish people and benefited and became a very wealthy man as a result of this.
Yes, called it the best time of his life.
Exactly. So this is what we're seeing. And Ben Gurion was in that group that went to Israel to be the first leaders of Israel. And then it began to make more sense why they were turning shiploads of the poor Jews that were leaving Europe, trying to escape and go to Palestine because or Israel. I like to call it Israel. I hate to call it Palestine. But they were going to Israel, and they were hoping to go there for the coming of the Mashiach. But instead, even though the British mandate had given them this land, they were all being turned back, sent back to the death camps, only to be exterminated. So, it's a much graver situation than we could ever imagine. Bonnie, if you can weigh in for a second, I want to look this up real quick.
Alrighty. Let me see. I would say everyone, the world is certainly heating up. And if you don't have a little prayer group, I would urge you to start one. Just have some people over in your home. Have a dinner. Friday night, lots of times is open. Have soup and sandwiches or something easy. Go into maybe and then just pray around the table. Pray around the table maybe a couple of times. Do this as you can, maybe, but please do it regularly, because there's power in meeting. There's power in meeting together to pray, to understand. We have so much to repent of in this country. Judgment is coming. Please pray for everyone, all those who love Yeshua, Jesus. So many are going to be deceived, are being deceived. They're not heeding the wake-up calls. Many feel that they're going to be, taken out early. That would be lovely, but, if you bank on this and it doesn't happen, you might be spiritually unprepared. So, if you want to believe this, okay. But certainly get spiritually prepared in the event that this is not truth, because by and large, Christianity globally, doesn't agree with this, doesn't adopt this. They call it who was a Corrie ten Boom called it an American deception. That's what she called it. So anyway, I don't want to get off on pre-trib, post-trib. I really don't. All I want is for people to get spiritually prepared because at times I think, I don't know, Stephen, do you think this is the year? I think this is the year. We're at 24 minutes 39 seconds. So
all right, we're gonna take a break here then, and we will catch you guys on the other side.
Absolutely, stay with us, folks. Okay, save that one. Are you ready?
Yes, we're ready. Everybody is live and ready. I have no idea what they're commenting about right now, but they're live and ready.
You can't see the comments.
I just have to go to a different screen for that. I'll probably will jump in there in a few minutes and see.
Okay.
So we'll go we'll
sure.
go from there.
Yeah, gotcha.
I did find the website, by the way.
You what, brother?
I found the website where this information is at that we're going to speak
okay. Okay, and this is on turning refugees away?
Yes, this is this is from the book Perfidy we're going to get into in just a moment here. By Ben Haidt in 1961, and he's the one that exposes from the actual trial, from the Nuremberg trials.
We'll record this, brother. Okay. All right. Alrighty, welcome back for the second half. We are going to go to the book Perfidy here, and you're going to find some direct transcripts from the trial, Stephen.
That's exactly right, Bonnie. What we have here, and this is by an excerpt from How Britain's Biggest Racist Created Zionism by Mark Bergman, the campaigner in December 1978, edited by henrymakow.com. And he writes in here the book Perfidy. So it's like two different books. We're talking about one book by Mark Bergman, Burdman, back from 1978. I think the title of that book, the book's title on that one was How Britain's Biggest Racist Created Zionism. All right, but we're going to talk about specifically Ben Haidt and his book Perfidy because he quotes about this. And this is where I'm interested in. I've actually was able to find a copy of this book. So we've got this book coming. Hopefully we'll be able to read this. Ben Haidt was a Jewish man. And
how do you spell Haidt? So we can look it up on the internet and maybe get the book.
Yes, Hecht, Ben Haidt. I guess that's how you pronounce his name. And so the single most damning statement today is what it writes here on the interchangeability of the British Zionist cable that ran Israel during its early years and the leadership of the Nazis. In the book, Haidt presented extended excerpts from the famous 1953 Kastner trial, in which the pro-Nazi activities of Rudolf Kastner, left head of Hungarian branch of the so-called Jewish Agency Rescue Committee during World War II, and later spokesman for the Ministry of Trade and Industry in the new Israeli state, were brought to light in excruciating detail in a trial that rocked Israel to its foundations. Kastner, one of the inner circle of the Zionist elite around Israeli Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion during the 1943-53 decade, was revealed to have been the main Zionist agent of the Nazi exterminators of Hungarian Jews. Kastner, an Israeli court was shown systematically deluded the leadership of Hungarians, 800,000 Jews, into believing that the Nazis were interested merely in mass relocation of the Jews, not mass murder. In return for the genocide deception, Kastner was allowed to handpick a small Zionist elite of 388 Jews, mostly from his own family, to flee to Palestine. Among those, of course, was David Ben-Gurion. Haidt's book detailed Kastner's collaboration with Heinrich Himmler, Adolf Eichmann, and others with such precision that his book was suppressed, censored, and removed from libraries. Haidt's wife, after his death, tried to get the book republished, has been subjected to pressure, threats from the Zionist lobby in the U.S. today. Copies of Haidt's book are distributed virtually on a black market basis. Now, here's an excerpt from his book. He writes in here, in Hungary, my basic orders were to ship all Jews out of Hungary in as short a time as possible. In obedience to Himmler's directive, I now concentrated on negotiations with the Jewish political officials in Budapest. Among them, Dr. Rudolf Kastner, authorized representative of the Zionist movement. Now see, Rudolf Kastner was the actual Jewish man that was turning the Jewish people over, but yet at the same time saving only the elites that were going to be smuggled into Israel for creating the state of Israel. Now see, you have to understand too, guys, as you listen, I'm all for the creation of the state of Israel. But it's the thing that I'm against is the way the elites have gone about to establish our government. And therefore, the people have not truly had a hand in controlling the destiny of Israel. And no wonder why God has to send the Mashiach, because of the mess that we're in.
For sure. Yes, this world is not fixable.
Exactly. Now, what they're not telling you is that when this was all happening, it was Rome that was rescuing, like in this case here, these 388 Jews. Moshe Sharit, I don't know if Moshe Sharit is part of this group or not, but I do know that he is part of the group with Ben Gurion from what I understand. This is why we see Moshe Sharit go back and say to Pope Pius XII he wanted to give him a gratitude for helping save the Jews. The only part that Pope Pius XII had in helping to save the Jews were those that they were going to smuggle in to help set up the Illuminati government inside of Israel to control the way they wanted to see the destiny go in the latter days, which would also secure Rome getting Jerusalem, and that the Jewish people would only get the outer banks there of the country. This is why there was a West Bank. This is why I don't really know about as far as Gaza, but as far as the West Bank, in my opinion, was put there, Bonnie, as a buffer zone to protect that capital city that was supposed to be a city-state for the Vatican as the New World Order. Now, did they still plan that the New World Order would come in at a later date, like what we're seeing now as they're starting to make ready for it? Or did they anticipate that this would actually be something that should have happened years ago, but it has not happened as of yet? Nonetheless, I want to read another part here. Dr. Kastner's main concern was to make it possible for a select group of Hungarian Jews to immigrate to Israel. As a matter of fact, there was a very strong similarity between the attitudes in the SS and the viewpoint of these immensely idealistic Zionist leaders. I believe that Kastner would have sacrificed 1,000 or 100,000 of his blood to achieve his political goal. You can have the others, he would say, but let me have this group here. Because Kastner rendered us a great service by helping to keep the deportation of camps peaceful, I would let his group escape. After all, I was not concerned with small groups of 1,000 or so Jews. That was a gentleman's agreement I had with the Jews. That was on page 261 of the book, and that quote is coming directly from the Nazi leader himself. Who was that? That was... I don't know if it was Himmler. Oh, goodness.
How did you get the book? I'm looking on Amazon. It's not there.
I'd have to ask my wife. She's the one that found it. And no, it won't be on Amazon. Yes. I do know that.
No.
Yeah. Okay, that was from Eichmann's SS Colonel von Wieselzinski, expanded on the nature of the Zionist-Nazi relationship. He's the one that, during the trial, that was his statement there. He actually called that very man, Kastner, he said that he would have made an excellent SS officer himself. This was a Jewish man that was part of an elite circle. So these are and of course not all wealthy Jews made it in either. There were many of them, like in the case of George Soros, who sold out the elite in order to gather the wealth of the world that these Jewish families had accumulated, and they went to their deaths. There's been movies and stuff like this, Bonnie, made. Very troubling. But here's where we're at right now. We are looking at this point here. We are actually starting to see that in the world that we're living in right now, and the things that are happening with all these meetings, the Bilderberg meeting, with the Vatican being there, with your very elites of the world. We have NATO meeting. They're concerned about Russia. I think Russia was number 8 on the Bilderberg list of issues, but
U.S. midterms.
Exactly.
U.S. midterms, and they bragged that they set up the EU and the euro. So, that they're globalists. That's really their main purpose, and how to control the world and guide it into a one world government. I think we can pretty much, conclude that they're not into nationalism. In fact, nationalism, I think Trump generated nationalism, or nationalism being allowed to be expressed because of Trump has, certainly give rise globally to an anti-movement, which is extremely concerning. George Soros was on there saying, everything that could go wrong has gone wrong with my lifelong plans.
Oh my gosh. But it's just weird though, Bonnie, how all these things are happening right now.
Yes,
and,
yes, it is.
Very, very troubling. And whoop.
But it's just weird though, Bonnie.
Hang on. I accidentally hit the wrong button here. So, but we're really though, Bonnie. The thing is what we're seeing today is we are definitely seeing a very troubling time. And also we saw that is not only was NATO having their meeting at the same time, but we saw that U.S. generals, General Dunford, was meeting with his Russian counterparts in Helsinki, Finland. And that was another big issue that was going on as well. And, and that kind of also give me a thought that perhaps President Trump was trying to do something to save this relationship with Russia, because his comment we saw at the G7, and then at the same time, while he's speaking about like this at the G7, we see that that President Trump has his generals, his trusted generals. Like I made a comment yesterday that if it had been General Breedlove, there would be no meeting. It would just be a war. That's what he would be pushing for, would be a war. But in this case here, General Dunford was there and trying to bring about ways to work together over Syria, over Ukraine, the situation, the tensions are here in Europe. And I have been watching, even though we're outside of the Czech Republic, I have watched twice already formation of NATO planes flying overhead here as the drills that are going on. Saber strike, saber rattling. I forget what they call this drill here, but it's troubling. We have the largest drills in Europe that has ever happened, in as far as the number of troops and tanks since World War II. And not only that, we also have the Ukraine military in Germany practicing as part of this military exercise. We have Israel here in the Baltic states practicing with NATO forces, and Israel's not a NATO country. And Israel has assured Russia that they're not doing this towards any ill towards Russia, but you have to ask yourself the question, what's going on? And then you have China. Russia, and Iran and their allies were meeting day before yesterday in Beijing, security meeting over this whole issue of what's going on with NATO and all that's happening there. So I began to really start backtracking, looking at the biblical prophecies over in Obadiah chapter 11, and really concerned about the direction that we're going into. So it doesn't look like a very good direction at all. So
Yeah, when you read in school the build up to especially World War One, World War Two, where they knew war was coming. Maybe not World War Two, but if you look at what Europe was doing before both wars, it seems like we're going down that path right now. And I think maybe Trump as Chamberlain is like, oh, we're going to have peace in our time. Um, yeah, I don't think so, and neither do you.
No, no.
I mean, he's working very hard. He's probably doing everything in the carnal world that he possibly can, but he doesn't have the spiritual component that would be required to navigate the world such as it is, to really get God's protection, to get divine protection. That's what he needs.
Well, Bonnie,
He needs this. Yeah.
the thing that comes to my mind when it comes to that issue there, and you're right, he doesn't have the spiritual aptitude as far as for that type of leadership. It's not like George Washington, where the man prayed all night,
Yeah.
About the next move when he's about to go into battle. That's a real president when you see one on their knees. I'm sure some would argue, oh no, he's a Freemason, but the point is, the man was a praying man, is what I look at.
That was before the Freemasonry was illuminized.
There you go.
They were a service organization.
That I'm glad to know that, because I always looked at him as a praying man, and George Washington had many visions about
the
this
Illuminati wasn't set up till 1776, and it was a long time. It wasn't until the early part of the 19th century that it emigrated to America, and in fact, it was kept out. So George Washington was not an Illuminati Freemason.
There you go. Thank you. Because I always hear people say that when I bring up George Washington and some of the founding fathers of this nation, that were God-fearing men, that were praying men, and that they went with their men into battle. It wasn't like they do today, where they sit on the, at the couch and watch everybody else go out and die. These men went in the battle, and I know George Washington. What was it? 2 or 3 rounds of musket bullets went through his coat. When he was in this battle, and but the point being here is that
there is a I think people should be aware of this. There's a big effort right now to spurn the start of America, because they do not want the world, and especially Americans, to realize the extreme and humble and sincere Christian roots of this country.
Exactly, and I can believe that. And the thing is President Trump, some of his spiritual advisors are where I think the trouble comes in. We're frozen on your end?
Yeah, I'm frozen. So I don't know I don't know. As long as are you? I don't see. Okay,
we're
there we go.
Frozen.
Okay, I don't know. You or me. There we go.
Yeah, no, everything's good on this end here. So, but at any rate, the advisors that President Trump has, I think that's where the trouble can come in as well, because a lot of his advisors are very pro Rome, and if Rome is for the New World Order and is very advocate in that direction, as we can see that they've sent their Secretary of State to the Bilderberg meeting, then what can we expect? And where can you expect Trump to end up seeing this head as well? So whether or not he's aware or not aware, I guess is neither here nor there. They're going to take the direction that they want. I think when it comes down to war, it's going to be the same as well there. And if that means they have to get Vice President Pence into power to do so, then they'll do it. But the funny thing is, Bonnie, they've always said that the vice president is really the true president, and the president is not the true president. So that's always an interesting aspect as well. And even though Mike Pence is supposed to be a born-again Christian, yet at the same time, he is definitely from a Catholic background.
Yeah, not only Catholic, but he was Jesuit trained.
Oh my gosh. Oh my
gosh. I mean, he could be, I mean, the Pope is Jesuit. He's Jesuit. First Jesuit priest we've ever had. He's a Jesuit. The Jesuits are not a religious order. They're a military order. That's how they were founded.
Yes.
Loyola was a Spanish military leader who was incensed at the Reformation, that the Reformation was taking away the Catholic believers, and he was going to have a military solution to a spiritual problem. And they ran the Inquisition,
Wow.
the Jesuits.
Well, the thing is, and they wanted to make sure. I mean, they had long-term goals, and
Yeah.
they are. I think we're at the point now that we're starting to see these goals come to fruition here in modern times, and this is what's troubling. By the way,
Right. And we don't really know how Pence got to be the vice presidential pick on the ticket either. I don't know that. That was what will allow you to run Trump, but here's the guy you have to take with you.
exactly. I was wondering if Michelle Bachmann didn't think that she was actually going to be on the ticket because she had wrote me a letter when Trump had still not picked his candidate for presidency, and she was asking me, Steve, can you remove the video you did about me on the stand for Israel? So I asked her. I said, "Well, what do you got against the video?" She says, "Well, I don't have anything against the video, but it's just right now it's not convenient." And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, she is expecting to be a possible pick for vice president, and I did it because she asked. She wanted me, she asked me if I would do it. So for that, the first one I did not, but this one particular one, I went ahead and did it because I could see that for her it was a political aspiration issue, and I knew why because Michelle Bachmann had come from a church originally that really blasted the Catholic Church, and now that she was looking for possibly running as a VP pick, she did not want to be associated with any type of system that would be also considered to be against the Pope of Rome. And so that was kind of interesting how that went. And we corresponded quite a bit for quite a while there over different issues because I was really trying to pick her brain on why and what the reasonings were and stuff behind it. So very interesting in my opinion what all went down there. So, but and two right now, I'm also wondering too, Bonnie, what's going to be happening next with Iran. Some of the articles that are coming out right now, they're saying that President Trump is wanting to get Kim Jong-un out of the way, get this issue resolved in order so that he can focus on taking down Iran. And again, I cannot help but think that that is part of a New World Order agenda as well. And to me, it's not so much to take down Iran, it's only to replace the regime that is there in order to facilitate who's going to control the financial gains of the Silk Road that's going to flow right dab smack through the middle of Iran. And what is your thoughts on this, Bonnie?
Well, I think in part, I think it's one of the judgments of America. I think that the financial hub, the financial gold mine, the financial prosperity is being taken from this country and put over to the Far East, which will, on a carnal, God is allowing this. We have been the hub. We've been the most wealthy, but it's clearly changing. The central bankers are all over there trying to strike deals. Their plan that debt is wealth, that plan has a lifespan, and the normal lifespan of that financial basic policy is over long ago. The normal lifespan is only about 40 or 50 years. They have been here since 1912. Decades ago this should have fallen, and right now I think it's only with holding the final financial collapse that is holding this country together, but they want to do the same thing over there. They want, as we were, a gold-backed currency. They want to establish all the domestic trading agreements. They want all the countries on board. Ostensibly, this is a win-win for everybody who joins, and the yuan is gold-backed. Our currency is inflation-proof. Our currency is using an ancient standard of wealth, not debt. But just let the central bankers get in there. How long? I mean, they will. They'll get in there. How long did it take us? They now admit that they triggered 1928, the 1930s depression, to see if they could do it. Could they bring down the economic powerhouse of America? Yes, they could. And that's when, I think a lot of deals were made with FDR that, we're living with even today. And then we got into the rise fall, that really should not happen. The Vietnam War needed to be paid for, so we got off the gold standard. So, the powers that be are moving shop over there. Trump wants to, I think, join. I mean, he's sent emissaries over there, but that's definitely the way it's going, and it's going to be the next. As far as the New World Order is concerned, the ideal cultural, religious culture is China to lead, to be their puppet. So, I mean, they have no religion. They have no history of religious freedom. They have no history of Christianity. They're perfect. They're perfect.
Yes.
Puppets, really.
Well,
and let the central bankers get in there, and they'll pervert it just like they did us.
That's exactly right. And like you said, Bonnie, communism is exactly what has been a favorite, even of Rome. It's always been a favorite for their own needs as
Absolutely, because then they can control people.
Exactly. They would rather have an atheistic belief and get rid of all the other religions, and that way what can dominate is what they want to dominate. And
Absolutely.
This is what
and if people are wealthy, with a lot of food, with good business practices, with religious freedom, with freedom of the press, those people, and well educated, those people are not controllable.
Exactly. And that's what they want. They need
and that's what they want. Yes.
Down
and we're out of time.
We are
I'm so sorry, we're out of time. That's
okay. Oh gosh. Guys,
you have a closing word, brother?
Yes, we'll close here as well. So it's really been a blessing to be on today and to do this with you, Bonnie, and also that you came here, and Hebrew Nation Radio has aired live today on Israeli News Live. I know that's a blessing for the people there.
Yes, yes. Hebrew Nation Radio supports you.
Thank you very much. And let's see, I just want to see if we can see how many people are actually viewing in. I don't get to see that part. I can see the comments here. Normally, it just depends. We normally have about 1,000, close to 1,000 people that are there live. And we have right now we have 392 watching. I do see that as of right now there, because we actually came on at an unusual time for them. So a lot of people didn't anticipate that. But it will still, though, we will probably see 15,000, 20,000 people. Now, I will say this too, though. YouTube sent me a message yesterday that your views are being majorly suppressed. We apologize for this. Your views are far higher than what you are seeing. So if it says 384, we know that's not right. We have 235 thumbs up, so got to be a heck of a lot more than 384 people watching, that's for sure.
Yeah.
If you've enjoyed the broadcast, please thumbs up the video. That will certainly be a blessing there, and kind of gives us a better idea about how many people are watching. So don't forget, if you want to watch Hebrew Nation or listen to Hebrew Nation Radio, it's by MP3 online. You can listen in to the older broadcast as well. HebrewNationOnline.com, and just type in the search bar Flashpoint, and you'll be able to see that. That's also in the description on YouTube here, so when you watch it there, you can actually go down there and copy paste that link into your web browser. Thank you for watching, guys. Shalom, shalom. I got to figure out where I have you guys live at so I can stop the broadcast on our end as well. Erev Tov.
Shalom, everyone. Thanks for joining.